on a cash out refinance, you can take it over. I wouldn't wait any longer than a week.
Okay, cool. And I also have another one. This may not be as quick, but I've been having, I don't want to call it trouble, but just with my acquisitions team, like having them make the amount of calls, right? Like we're locking up deals, but not to where I want to be. Like I want to lock up 4 deals every single week. And my top acquisitions guy, he just made like 40 calls on Friday. It's like 35. And that's like not enough at all.
Yeah.
What's a good number for them to call?
100 a day.
Okay.
We used to do this with, so Tino, when Tino was on my team, it was the same thing. It was like, our goal was, Daryl, were you in the group when I did that cucumber challenge thing like a year and a half ago?
No, I think I got in right after that.
Okay. So I did this thing where I was like, all right, I'm going to test the limits of my sales guys, right? This is roughly a year and 8 months ago. And at the time, our measurement for success was 50 calls a day.
Yeah.
And every time we missed our numbers in terms of contracts or numbers of like assigned properties, it all came down to one KPI, how many calls we made per day. That's it. That's all it came down to, calls per day. And so it was really interesting. This is actually where a lot of things went awry for me. So this is, let me reverse back to COVID time. Okay. So COVID comes around. This is 2 years and 4 months ago. COVID comes around and the whole world changes. Right. And all of a sudden my acquisition team is like, oh my gosh, the sellers and COVID and this and there. Guys, it comes down to one thing, 50 calls a day. 50 calls a day, 50 calls a day, 50 calls a day. Make 50 calls a day. That's it. Make 50 calls a day. You're going to make money. It doesn't matter. And I went through this like whole mindset thing. I paid for a mindset coach to come in and like kind of tweak them and change them up a little bit. They got all inspired. You know, some people just need to get inspired, you know,
Right.
Which, you know, sometimes I do too, but 99% of the time I'm just taking action and I don't need to be inspired. My momentum keeps me inspired. And so they lose momentum because they're paying attention to the news. I had to remind them it was 50 calls. And all of a sudden, it was like COVID didn't exist because we were just hitting our 50 calls. This is also when I mathematically proved to my team, here's your check. You made $11,000 last month because your average amount of calls was 25 calls a day.
Yeah.
Here's Tino's check. He made $18,000 because he made 42 average calls per day. And I would show them mathematically. And so that's what I would do is start out by showing them through a KPI of like, you make this many calls, you make this much money. That's all there is to it. You don't even have to have the skill. You don't even have to be that great on the phone. You just have to make the calls. So that went well for a while. And, you know, you get acquisition people this is a constant thing with acquisition people. It's like they get a check for $6,000 and it might as well be like all the money in the world because they want to take 3 days off, 4 days off. You see them wearing new Kanye's and shit. And which, you know, I like Kanye's too. It's all good. So then what I did is I go, I'm going to see if I can push the limits on these calls because 50 calls a day, I started seeing Tino was able to make 50 calls a day by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, okay, I think we need to push the boundaries of this. So we created this cucumber challenge thing where I got a cucumber trophy. It looked like a big old throbbing cucumber. And I said, whoever makes the most calls today gets the trophy and $1,000. And any contract that we get, I'll give you an extra $250 on top of your commissions. And I also made this fun game where I said, anytime you can tell the seller you love them and they say, I love you back, I'll give you $50. And so we did this competition called the Cucumber Challenge and I live streamed it. It was fun. And you know what was interesting is how many calls when I incentivize them by like, you're going to make this much money today if you make the most calls. How many calls do you think Tino is now able to make in that one day?
100 plus. Probably.
I think he ended up making 380 calls in that one day. 380 calls.
And are you counting double dials?
Yeah, you don't dial once unless you dial twice.
Okay.
Oh no, am I counting double dials?
Yeah,
no, you called the seller. That's one call. You got a double dial.
Yeah.
That's one call. And so all of a sudden I'm like 380 calls. You got $1,000 bonus. You got 3 contracts today, bro. What was the difference? He's like,
Made the calls.
I made the calls.
Yeah.
100% of the difference was I made the calls. Now, that was also the beginning of the end for me, because what my acquisition team realizes that everything comes down to numbers, and they go, wait, we don't need pace anymore. All we have to do is go generate these leads and just make our calls, and we make money. This is crazy. And so it was the beginning of the end. They started resenting and whatever else. But that was just lack of leadership on my part. And actually, I think Ingrid is actually correct. It's you had to be cool as a cucumber. But yeah, I think that's what it was. Actually, no, it wasn't. I'm a man, and I have to make man jokes every once in a while. I'm very sorry. So, Daryl, the way that I did it that worked in the beginning, and I kind of wish I didn't go beyond this, is I just tracked how much money they were making versus how many calls they were making, and I broke it down into two metrics. The metric of the team: this person makes this much money because they make this much calls. This person makes this much money because they make more calls. That was one metric. And then the other metric was based on the calls that you make, because everybody, this is what I learned. I don't ever think about, what do I have to do today to make money today? A lot of times, Daryl, you're the same way. How do I make money? How do I do activities today to have it show up and manifest in 6 months or a year or 2 years or 5 years or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of the friends I'm starting to associate with, they go, let's build a business. So in 7 years, I get a check for $80 million. That's a very different conversation than how do I pay my bills next month, right? Exactly. And so I forgot as an acquisition team lead what that really meant, because I hadn't worried about my monthly income for a long time. So I had to break it down that the employee, the average person in this world, looks at everything as, I make this much per hour. It's the lowest level of thinking is I make this much per hour. I sit my ass in a chair and I get paid to do that. This much per hour. Then it gets into like acquisitions, and what really hits home for them, Daryl, and I don't know if you have this number, how much do I make every time I make a call? Right? So think about that. Let's do the math. Okay, I'll tell you what Tino's number was. The last month that Tino worked for me, this is his check was $18,000 roughly. I don't know the exact number. It was $18,000 bucks. So $18,000. Let's divide that by 21 working days in the month. That's all there was. 21 working days. That means he made $857 per day. $857 per day. Let's divide that by 50 calls. Means he makes $17 a call. You want a good paying job? Make $17 a call, whether they pick up or you leave a voice memo or you have a conversation. $17 per call. Have you ever broken it down for your acquisition team that way?
I haven't. No, I just wrote.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Remind yourself that the people that are scaling and they're trying to trend up, like you are at a level, Daryl, where you don't think that way anymore, and that probably wouldn't get you too motivated anymore.
Yeah.
You have people that come into your team, they need to be motivated a very specific way. They're not going to, you know what I learned? Don't tell your employees about big dreams you have of owning $1 billion in real estate. They can't even fathom it. They're so blocked. Their blinders will only let them see what they can afford. Bashas', Walmart, or Albertsons. And then when they can start affording a little bit more, they start thinking about Whole Foods. And then they start thinking about all sorts of other things. And then they start thinking about other things. And then they forgot about what it was like to only care about $17 a call.
I love that. Okay, yeah, because I was like, I didn't know what I was going to do to motivate them. On Monday, I was honestly going to just say, I'm going to show you guys how this works. And I was going to take the worst leads and just make 100 calls. But I felt like that was going to make me take a few steps back. And
it does. That was a hard thing for me. Here's what happened with me. And I got 7 minutes till I got to make a call to a seller. So I'll give this a little bit. So I used to do this. I used to go into my office every Wednesday with Tino. And for the first 6 months with the sales team, I didn't do that. They didn't rely on me. And then when we had these dips in numbers, I would come in, let me show you.
Yeah.
Let me show you. And then guess what happened? They started relying on Daddy Pace to come in every Wednesday and reinvigorate them. In fact, they started coming up with these bullshit things in their mind, like, yeah, it's Monday, it's Tuesday. Pace is going to come in here on Wednesday and really get me inspired. And then they would be inspired for about 2 or 3 hours after that. But the smartest thing I ever did is I put the number of how much money people made per call on a whiteboard in the hallway. And the goal for them was to beat that. Like who has the highest dollars per call?
Right.
And you break it down to something so simple that they can understand. It sounds stupid, but their brain has not been opened up. Their mindset has not changed. And so you have to come down to their mindset. So here's what happened. Wednesdays, when I would not have a Wednesday thing because I was traveling or speaking or I was doing something else, Tino would resent me for it.
Wow.
In fact, in our last exit Zoom that I ever did with Tino blamed me for abandoning the sales team. I go, wow. Abandoning the sales team? You're the sales manager. What are you talking about, you little bitch? What are you talking about? Well, you used to do these Wednesday things with us. And I'm like, yeah, but I also didn't have to in the beginning, but then I had to come in and babysit you. So I learned now, like, I'm just not babysitting an acquisition team. Either I got leaders or I don't.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to screw it up. I'm going to give them measurements of success, and I'm going to give them things in a platform to be successful, make a lot more money they were making at Uber or whatever it is that they were doing. But again, guess who you're typically tracking in an acquisition role? You're attracting people who right now Uber Eats or driving Uber or Lyft or those types of things is an appealing choice. And so what do they think about? They think about how many dollars do I make per ride on average?
Okay.
It's one step above how much do I make per hour. You're trying to motivate them too much to the point where they can't, like, they're not ready for Ed Milet. They're not ready for all the things that you're dropping bombs on them. They're not ready for you teaching them pitching terms. They're just ready for you to tell them, hey, if you made your 50 calls today, you'd make $17 per call. You'd make $857. The most I ever had an acquisition person make in my business was like $26,000. Think about that. Divide that by $21 or 21 working days, and then divide that by 50 calls a day. That's $24 a call. You imagine that every time you got a call, somebody slaps $24, and then by the end of the day, you're like, holy crap.
Making
it's just that
all day. Yeah.
What they do is you go, hey, I'll put here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put $24 on a stack right next to you as you make your calls. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna take that stack and I'm gonna put it in a big duffel bag for you. I'm gonna hold on to that for 20 or 30 days until you get that you fill the duffel bag so full that I just give you the full duffel bag. That's the mindset that they have to have. Make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, bro. You just helped me a lot because I was talking to Sam Singh yesterday, and I told him how many calls they made. He's like, I would fire them right now. He's like, I would fire them.
No, I think you just put a barometer, and and then the other thing too, Daryl, is when they don't make it, at least you've utilized these guys as the test run.
Yeah.
And so the next guys that come in, you have a story to tell them, like, hey guys, this is an operation that if you just hit your calls every day, you're going to make 17 and do the comparison, right? So check this out. You could tell a story that's similar to this. Hey, if you make 50 calls a day, you will average $12 a call, whatever that number is. Mm-hmm. But if you make 49 calls a day, you'll make $2 a call. You have to hit that there's a threshold, guys. It's the 50 calls a day threshold. If you are underneath it, your income is 1/10 of what it could be if you just hit the goal. The goal is the threshold. We've done the research. We've done the thing. We know you got to hit the 50 calls. So in 60 days, 90 days, you're not making the money you want to make in this company. It's because you're not hitting your 50 calls a day. And by the way, I wouldn't make it 50 calls. I would tell them it's 100 calls a day.
They've had it really easy because I've been counting double dials. So that 34, 35
we don't, no, hell no, really, we don't count double. You didn't dial once if you didn't dial twice.